What's like an incredible first date for you?
Somehow we had started talking about jujitsu.
Okay.
We meet up in a park and he teaches me how to flip him over my back. He's a accomplished, award-winning animator.
Okay.
I wanted him to draw me naked.
You haven't met this person. You haven't talked to him on the phone. It's just a few messages.
It's a framed, animated nude. We have literally just placed the bag on the table and he gets a phone call from mommy. This guy's like 32.
Okay.
And is clearly you need to get your ass over here. I ended up ghosting him.
Have you been catfished before? Have you been on a date where like you thought it was one thing and it was something totally different and you're like, oh my God?
That's such a good question.
Welcome to Open Risk. I'm Mike Jones. This is Arianna Finger. And today we're talking about dating apps.
Yes, we are.
You know, I've had a long history in business working with dating apps, owning dating apps, building infrastructure for them. And you were just mentioning that you're just starting to think about getting on a dating app.
I am. About 2 days ago, I was finally accepted into this invite-only dating app.
Got it.
I get the notification that I've been accepted.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of anxious. I'll let you guys know when I do actually set it up.
Okay.
But
Excited. People will find you on there.
Yes. I still haven't set it up yet.
Yeah. But in terms of setting it up, you're kind of selecting photos that would represent not only who you are, but also the kind of person you want to attract.
Exactly.
Right.
And so I was discussing this with you, and it hadn't really crossed my mind the latter of what you just said.
Right, because in a certain sense, if you want somebody who's adventurous and travels and goes outside and does a ton of skiing or snowboarding or whatever, like you want photos that when they see you, they can see them doing those activities with you,
Exactly.
Right? So it's not just who you are in your pretty photos.
Exactly.
It's more of saying, this is what I like to do, and we'll see if our interests match up just through the photos.
Exactly.
And the reality is, like, we're in a world where photos are like 80%, 90% of this experience, right?
And I think the other issue is, what the hell do I do with my bio? So when I had Hinge, I'm not, too serious. I laugh at myself all the time.
Sure.
My existence.
And your bio should reflect that, right?
Yes. But my whole existence, like every single day, every moment of my life is just something that most people would find embarrassing. It just is.
Yeah.
So like, I think my answers, I don't remember what they were.
Yeah.
But my Hinge profile, when I had it, I think the answers were funny.
Okay.
I don't know if that is the route I necessarily want to go with this profile. But also at the same time, does that kind of veer from who I am as a person?
Well, I think in the profile text, you definitely have to represent who you are. Because if you're a funny, humorous person and you want to laugh all the time, like that needs to come through in the profile. You don't want to end up matching with somebody that suddenly is not like that. Yeah.
It's like I'm catfishing my personality.
Exactly. I think that the photos have to represent the kind of future life you want to live.
Yeah.
And then I feel like the bio has to represent really who you are.
I agree.
But if we go through the history here, I mean, I was working with Match.com way back in the beginning when they were doing that. And that became like the first kind of at scale dating site. Mm-hmm. And then there were a bunch of just, in the history of it, a bunch of these niche sites set up that were like Christian people meet, Black people meet, Mormon people meet, farmers meet, right? Like, so when Match became the biggest, and we see this in many businesses where when there's a marketplace like eBay, the biggest kind of wins. And then you find all these niche competitors that kind of come out with very small specific things, right? And in dating was the same thing. Match became the predominant service, right? There were all these small niche players. And then there was this transformation, right? The mobile phone allowed this transformation. And that was the introduction of Tinder, which was like revolutionary at the time. And even though early days of Match, I think they probably limited the amount of photos you could have on. And it was all about live chat and instant messaging and images. And we were kind of involved in that at one of my companies. But then with Tinder, it suddenly was like just pure photos, right? And it's just like fast scrolling, immediate reaction. You're not even reading a bio. Think about this. If we were in a room of 100 people, you would be judging whoever you want to date in that person against everyone else in that room. Mm-hmm. So you're looking for one person that in your mind is the best fit out of the other 99 people in the room. When you step into Tinder or Hinge or any of these dating apps, you're comparing one person against an infinite amount of solutions. And I think psychologically, it always makes people think like, well, the next swipe might be better.
It's also kind of sad. I didn't delete Hinge because I got in a relationship like their slogan. I deleted it because I started treating it like social media. I started losing hours in the day because I found it fun to just swipe and swipe and swipe. And it's the reason why I deleted Facebook or Snapchat or any of those things. And it's because I didn't need to mindlessly spend time on when I could be spending time doing other...
Yeah, it's consuming your time. Right. And you're like, and when you're swiping, I mean, for you, are you swiping like more attractive guy, or more attractive guy, more attractive guy? Like, is it judged off the attractiveness? Like, how are you making the decision of who you're saying yes to in these setups?
I was making the decision not just based on attractiveness, but also based on the answers. If some guy was like, oh, my favorite show is The Office, automatic no.
You're saying it's basic. It's the most basic thing.
I don't want to be with someone who's basic.
Right.
Because again, I'm just...
That's not you.
No.
That's fair. Got it. Okay. So you're spending time reading, your images plus reading, yes, no, right? And then your queue's filling up. I assume your queue will fill up on these new apps with all these guys, and you're going to sort through these conversations, and you're going to whittle it down to a few that you're going to start really engaging with. Yep.
The best like message that I ever received was like, I think it was, I think I responded to this person. He responded to whatever I responded. I said maybe one thing back, and his next response, so response number 2 from this guy was like, dinner at blah, 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 7 p.m. Tuesday, ?
Right.
And I sent him my number and said yes.
You loved it. You love the masculine, like, let's go out, let's just do it, let's set a time, let's meet.
I don't want to know how your fucking day went.
Right.
I don't care.
Yeah. You don't need the stories.
No.
Yeah. Like, let's just get together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
And it's the same with like how I text now.
Yeah.
I might do like some back and forth if it's important. Yeah. If someone says, hey, how was your day?
Yeah.
Go fuck yourself.
Right. You're just, it's too boring.
Yeah. I'm like, call me.
Right. Fair.
I'll talk. I would love to know about your day if you call me.
Okay. So you're sorting through this. You're ending up in these conversations. Talk about how Instagram plays here, because Instagram in many ways is a dating app.
So my Instagram's on private.
Okay.
I don't have my name on it.
Okay. Guys aren't requesting, they're not messaging you to meet up?
No, but I think for a lot of my friends, they are.
The behavior we're seeing in this general space is that people go to these dating apps, they find the people that they're interested in. Yeah. A lot of times the apps are now listing people's Instagrams. Yeah. They're bouncing out to Instagram, and they're moving all the messaging directly through Instagram. That really is where they're connecting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think I'm definitely an outlier in the Instagram space. Yep. But who knows? Maybe I'll put my name.
But I would argue that, like, if the behavior I'm stating is true, which is statistically as an investor, this is behavior I am seeing, then your Instagram profile becomes as important, if not more important, than your dating profile.
I agree.
Like, in many cases, they're almost the same. Dating profile has a little bit more intimate stuff because hopefully it's a little bit more guarded and protected. Yeah. But Instagram becomes like the primary dating force. Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. Okay. So you're messaging with somebody, you're excited, you connect. Suddenly you're on that date, right? At what point are you like, I'm going to pause my profile? Like, this guy is Mike. I want to spend some time here.
I was definitely in era of exploration. I think I stopped really messaging back towards the end of 2020 when there were maybe like 2-3 guys that I would see semi-regularly. So like maybe like there was one guy that I dated for 6 months. It got to the point where I liked him enough to, I wasn't interested necessarily in going on other dates. We never defined the relationship. Yeah. But it was more of I'm kind of over swiping and all of this.
You're just fatigued on it. You're I got 3 people I want to focus on. I'm just going to pause and just like not message because it takes up too much time.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fair. It is a funny dynamic. And I was looking at this because we had invested in a bunch of these apps. Is this concept that like you open this app, and you basically like a whole bunch of people, and then they like a whole bunch of people, and then suddenly there's a match, and then it's funny that it's a 2-sided like structure in my mind. In a certain sense, it'd be more efficient if just the algorithm just matched people and you didn't have to like, and you were just put in conversations, I think. Yeah. I will talk to a lot of guys that are like, oh, I just like 100% of the people. Yeah. Because I don't know who's going to like me. So I'll just like everybody. And then the women can select which ones wants to like me. This is from obviously a very heterosexual perspective. Yeah. And then just let the women choose, and then I'll just message with the women if I'm really interested. So I almost feel like there's this incentive to like as many people as you possibly can to see if you'll end up in enough conversations, which means that the entire like, not like swipe structure is kind of flawed, I think.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Because everyone's looking for just quantity, I think, at this point.
Quantity, and then within quantity, who stands out? Yeah,
who stands out? Okay, so you're meeting up in person. Are you typically doing lunch dates, dinner dates? Like, you haven't met this person, you haven't talked to them on the phone, no FaceTimes, it's just a few messages.
Like, if we're just going back and forth about random fluff bullshit, I'm not going to meet with you.
Got it. Too boring.
No.
Yeah.
Set a date, set a time. Sure. Like, be decisive.
Yeah.
So occasionally I would do a FaceTime. but usually a dinner date.
Okay.
And then I would not personally vet someone. Like, I would not personally Google someone, because if I do that and I go on this date, like, it feels like I'm lying by being like, oh, really? You do that?
Oh, so you do zero pre-research.
I do zero pre-research.
Interesting.
I send my friends the person.
Okay.
And I say, can you look this up? Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah.
Because that way I know I'm not going to go get murdered, most likely.
Yeah.
But I also can go into the date with no preconceptions, beyond whatever the dating profile is.
Yeah, I get that. No, it's a nice concept. It's like you're coming in pure, so you can just discover that person however you want to discover them.
Because if I know anything,
right,
I'm not good at faking it.
But that also means you could be stepping in with somebody that's like dangerous or like has a criminal history. You're not doing any maybe your friends are like making sure you're safe.
Let's say you do really start to like this person. Let's say you do start to date, maybe even become like boyfriend, girlfriend, whatnot.
Whatever serious. Yeah.
It almost starts on this, like, not bed of lies, but it starts from a place that isn't completely honest.
Yeah, that's true.
And one thing I value the most is honesty.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah.
What about international? So if these guys are messaging you, they're not in town, they're in different cities. Like, how open to that are you?
I'm very open to it.
Yeah.
But I don't have any, schema of that, because I was dating during deep COVID.
Right.
And I was living in LA. So I was dating in LA.
Yeah.
Because people that, I probably dated some people that used to travel a lot, but there wasn't an option to travel a lot because you were in lockdown.
Right. But now it's like some guy messages from London, from Italy. Are you like, great? Like, let's build a relationship?
Yeah.
Oh, really? You're down?
I would totally do that. Why not?
Well, I don't know. Work, job, travel. There's lots of good reasons. Like, I mean,
that's true.
What's the future of that? You know what I mean? Maybe it's fun. Maybe it's...
And so I've been thinking a lot about this. And so, like, I guess for context, like, I got out of a serious relationship in like late February.
Yep.
Like, didn't really kind of come to a close until I kind of moved here in April. And I was talking to some friends of mine the other day about just dating and going maybe exclusive with someone or whatnot. And I got this almost like fear. I'm not ready to just date one person exclusively.
Right.
I totally would just date one person
as
long as there isn't the label of exclusive.
Sure.
I don't want the straitjacket.
Yeah, you don't want to close yourself off.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Interesting. And have you been catfished before? Have you been on a date where like you thought it was one thing and it was something totally different and you're like, oh my God?
That's such a good question. There was this guy that I briefly dated.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time that we actually saw each other in person, he said something like, oh my God, I didn't expect you to look like this. So I think I inverse catfished.
Oh, like you were better than he had hoped.
Yes.
Well, that's nice.
Which was nice.
That's good. That's a positive.
It was a positive.
Yeah. And what about best first dates?
Oh my God.
So you meet somebody, what's an incredible first date for you?
I'm so weird that I think I have attracted some weird ass first dates.
Yep.
So the very first date that I went on a dating app, it was, I want to say late July, early August, 2020, something like that. It was this guy. He's a, accomplished award-winning animator.
Okay.
In LA. And it was a lunch date actually, kind of, but it was more of a picnic thing because again, deep COVID.
Right.
And the date, somehow we had started talking about jujitsu.
Okay.
And he loved jujitsu, did it every day. It was just his kind of therapy.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's really cool. You want to teach me something? We meet up in a park and he teaches me how to flip him over my back.
Oh, that's amazing.
This man weighed at least twice as much as me.
Okay. It's an awesome first date.
It was an awesome first date.
I love that. And unexpected.
Totally.
It wasn't bring your gear. You just showed up and we're doing something different.
And we ended up seeing each other a few times, went on a few dates. I wasn't really that attracted to him physically.
Yeah.
Loved his personality.
Okay.
Great guy.
So it fizzled out.
I was not as nice as I was back then.
Okay. You were not as nice then as you are now, is what you're saying? Got it. Okay, so you were more mean.
I was going through shit. It was COVID.
Sure.
Who the fuck wasn't going through shit?
Sure. COVID was brutal.
Yeah, everyone was going through a moratorium. Yeah. And so it ended basically with, he came over one day because I had also, when we'd established the jujitsu thing, I must have made some joke towards the beginning of this meeting relationship how I wanted him to draw me naked. I ended up ghosting him. Again, he was my first date on a dating app.
Okay.
And in probably months because of COVID.
Right.
So after I ripped that Band-Aid off, then I was like, okay, I'll go on another date. I'll go on another date. And so I think that's around the time when he drew me naked.
Yeah.
Is when I then started maybe going on another date here, another date there.
Okay.
And so I kind of ghosted him.
Got it.
He then Ubers from Burbank. I get a text and he was like, sorry, didn't work out or blah, blah, blah. Like, I left you a present on your doorstep. And I was like, oh my God. And like, I got back maybe a few minutes after he had left.
Yeah.
And I get there and it's a framed, animated nude.
It's like a parting gift.
And he framed it and he hung it on my door knob.
I mean,
and so I obviously texted him back and I was like, I'm so sorry that I ghosted you. Like, let's be friends. Like,
wow.
Like, love this. You're amazing.
Was this the only time you received a parting gift after you ghosted a guy?
No.
This is not the only time.
Okay,
no, this must be the only time.
After I ghosted.
Well, yeah, I mean, you basically broke up with him and he gave you a present.
After I ghosted, but it's not the only breakup gift I've ever gotten.
Wow. I didn't realize like breakup gifts were a thing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's one of my most prized possessions to this day.
Oh, really? That's really, really funny. Amazing. I kind of want to know what other breakup gifts you've gotten.
My most recent ex gave me a absolutely stunning ring, non-marital.
Just like great time.
No.
Thanks for the dating.
No, he tried to get me back. He was like,
oh, this wasn't really a breakup gift. This was a reconnection gift.
No, this was I want you back. And I was like, I can't accept this. And he was like, I really want you to have it. And I was like, okay.
Okay. Well, he was trying to woo you. This wasn't like, I understand it's over and here's a present representing our relationship.
That's fair.
Right. The animator really closed the relationship with a gift.
That's true.
Let's do another date story.
Okay.
So yeah, give us another, it could be COVID, non-COVID date story. It doesn't have to be dating apps. Just like dating apps are just the way to get to the date, right? So dating apps get us to the date.
Yes.
Now you're on the date. Give us another good or bad date story.
I have a bad one.
Please.
Actually. Okay. So this is also during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This was honestly kind of a catfish.
Okay.
Kind of. So this guy, we meet on Hinge, obviously. And he had a photo of a boxer. I grew up with boxers, love boxers, soft spot in my heart.
Got it.
So we started talking. Also, his boxer was named Brocky. My boxer was named Brocky.
And you see all this through Hinge?
Yes. So we started talking. We matched. He also looked a lot better on Hinge than he did in real life.
Okay.
But we're getting there. So this was one of those moments where there were so many bad omens leading up to me even going to this person's like house.
Yeah.
But we talked on the phone. I had someone Google this person. I didn't feel weird going to this guy's house.
Okay.
Which I would not don't go to the person's house unless you.
Sounds dangerous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. This guy was from this was a fine situation.
Okay.
Basically, this is I think maybe the only time I've ever done that.
Okay.
But the Googling checked out, so it was fine. So the date was sushi, sake, and spliffs.
Okay.
And I used to smoke weed at this time.
Okay.
And so I go over to his house. I don't remember what happened on the drive over to his house, but I feel like there was some omen. I remember being like, like
an omen. Oh, you felt like this is wrong. Like on the way over, you're like, I shouldn't be doing this. Okay.
Yes. So I'd stopped actually smoking weed at this point.
Okay.
This is important.
Okay.
Because I used to smoke a lot of spliffs.
Yeah.
I'd stopped smoking weed like late August 2020.
Okay.
And this had to have been, let's call it late September, maybe, something like that. A, hadn't smoked weed since late August, and B, had zero tolerance.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. So we get there.
Okay.
We both roll spliffs.
Yeah.
We do have a little spliff off. Okay.
Okay.
And we then went to Bristol Farms to go, because he lived right next to Bristol Farms.
Yeah.
So we walked to this. It's a massive one, too.
Mm-hmm.
We walk to the Bristol Farms, smoke a spliff on the way. I maybe have 2 puffs. I am high out of my mind.
Okay.
He also doesn't look like
Right. It didn't look like his photos.
Yeah.
So you're kind of.
Okay. So I'm high out of my mind. We get to Bristol Farms.
Mm-hmm.
We are having fun. Like our personalities did mesh.
Okay.
We get there. We are looking for the sake. Turns out Bristol Farms does not have a good selection of sake.
Okay.
In fact, really, really limited selection.
Fair.
It's like 8 p.m. The lights turn off.
Okay.
The alarm starts blaring.
Okay.
And we're like, what the literal fuck? Like, we're
Yeah.
about to die.
Yeah.
There's going to be a shooting in the Bristol Forest.
Awesome. Welcome to LA. Okay.
And we're in Melrose.
Sure.
Like, we're in a great neighborhood.
Yeah.
And but we don't hear any screaming. So eventually he's like, fuck it. Turns on his flashlight. This was weird to me. I'm not going to lie. He just turns on his flashlight and goes about trying to find a sake.
Okay. Got it. So he continues on the journey.
And I'm like,
he's committed to the mission.
I'm like, what if we're going to die? We're still looking at sake. Let's go like hide or something. I don't know. Anyways, finally, some guy's like, we need everyone to go to the front. And
For sure.
So we just grabbed 2 random bottles and like, go to the front. Turns out cash registers still work when. Okay. I know, weird. If you were wondering, anybody.
Yeah. You sure this wasn't part of your high experience? This actually happened.
This
right?
actually
okay,
happened.
Got it. Okay.
So everyone starts checking out. As we're walking out, the lights finally turn back on. We're like, okay, everything's fine. We get back to his place. We open the sake. Horrible. Like, we picked the sake in the wooden boxes and it was so bad.
Terrible. Okay.
And so then we're like, okay, fuck it, fine. So then we start to look at, like, we go on like Postmates or whatnot.
Looking for sushi.
Yeah. He's like, this is my favorite sushi restaurant, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, great. Order. Yeah. I love when a guy orders.
Got it.
I know what I like.
Right.
I will tell
Again,
you if I
you want
don't
that
like
masculine
it.
vibe. I'm going to make the choice. Got it.
So we have literally just pressed place order when he gets a phone call from mommy.
Wait, it said the word mommy on the phone?
It said the word mommy.
So red flag.
This guy's like 32.
Okay.
Cool.
Got it.
And also when I had first gotten to his house, I was like, where's Rocky? And he was like, oh, he's at my parents' house in Bel Air. And I was
so the dog was gone. So like that initial connection you saw through there was not even available.
Okay. So now fast forward again, and he like.
Does he take the call from mom?
He takes the call from mommy.
I'm not going to say that, but I get it. It sounds terrible. Please. That's right. It's kind of a Norman Bates thing. Yeah. Psycho. Okay.
And so he like his face slowly starts to like.
Oh, geez.
And he then starts standing up, and like now he's kind of like pacing a little bit. I can tell like not bad.
Yeah.
Whatever the news is bad, but I'm trying not to stare.
Okay.
Like, I've just met this person. I'm not going to try and eavesdrop on someone I've just met.
For sure.
Well, it gets to the point where finally I'm like, okay, I'm going to look. I'm going to try and listen, like try and hear if I can hear anything.
Got it.
Then he gets out the phone and I'm like, is everything okay? And he's like, well, my dog hasn't been doing well. My parents are saying that this is it. Like, this is the last night. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'll leave. Like, you go, I'll go. Like, and he's like, no, I want you to stay here. And I was like, what? Your dog's about to die. Yeah. And he's like, no, like stay. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
Sure.
Okay.
Like, I'll stay for no other reason than to sober up.
Fair.
So then the sushi comes.
Okay.
We have literally just placed the bag on the table and he gets a phone call from dad, not daddy, just dad. Okay. And this one lasts maybe 10 seconds. Okay. And is clearly you need to get your ass over here.
Oh, wow.
So he hangs up and I was like, is everything okay? Like, you need to go kind of thing. And he's like, yeah, I have to go. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, we can reconvene another time. And he's like, no. Like, you can stay here. Like, I don't want you to drive
enjoy
right
the sushi.
now. Not even just enjoy the sushi. Like, I have a great TV.
Okay. We all have great TVs, but okay.
Fully gets me set up in his bedroom with this massive
Is he trying to like capture you for the night? He's like, just wait here. I'll be back after the dog dies. Okay.
And then he's like, just in case I don't come back, like, will you just make sure all the doors are closed when you leave?
What? You're like, obviously.
So I ended up just eating sushi and watching TV and like passing out and waking up at 7 and leaving.
Okay. Just because that was a terrible date for you. It was a really terrible date for him because his dog died in the middle of the date, right? Like, I understand you're saying it's a terrible date, but to be honest, it was definitely his worst date. For sure. Yeah. Got it. I feel like you will have way worse dates than that. That does not sound super terrible.
I ended up going on 2 more dates with this guy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And
did it get better?
No.
Did any other pets die during the other dates?
No, but they were equally as what the fuck.
Okay. So just awkward.
That and the last one was we went to this nice restaurant. They sat us outside and they sat us at this fucking table that was on a slant. Yeah. He's way taller than me, okay?
Okay. So now he's like really tall?
They put me on the slant.
Yeah, they really put you down.
And I'm
Got it. You're like a little person at the
and
table.
I'm like, this is horrible. And that was it.
So just generally, I mean, omen, sure, but just it was like the universe didn't want you two together.
Exactly.
Got it. Kind of pushing you apart. That is interesting.
Yeah.
But what was funny is like in that story, relative to dating apps, it's like you're going through someone's profile and you see the dog and maybe you hear the dog's name and you're kind of like seeking serendipity.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we're looking for? Is like you're scrolling through these profiles and you're trying to find these mutual words or images or points of connection where you're like, that's like me.
Yeah.
And you're almost forcing it just like a little of like, how many overlapping points can we find within this very limited set of data to be like, oh, this is a person for me.
And I don't know what it says about me,
Mm-hmm.
but I was very particular about who I actually did go on dates with.
Yeah.
And all of them were equally had some bizarre
Serendipitous connections.
something to them.
Well,
Yes.
that's what I wondered is, I mean, are dating apps true? Are they serendipity? And because you're basically putting yourself into this pool and you're just looking for these weird little moments of connection that then would lead to conversations that lead to meeting. You know, maybe we're hoping the algorithms do something, but honestly, they probably don't.
A lot of people that I know who have met on, let's say, Hinge or another dating app. Hinge, for some reason, is a big one.
Okay.
Where people will try and pretend like they didn't meet on the dating app.
Because they feel shamed that somehow they had to resort to this, like...
Even in 2024, I met a couple...
Yeah, I don't get that.
I met a couple sometime at some point this summer.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, you guys are so cute. You know, how'd you guys meet? Blah, blah, blah. And people trust me right off the bat for some reason.
Sure.
And so they were like, well, we actually met on Hinge. But let me tell you this really funny story that we've concocted together that we actually tell people.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I don't know why I mean... I meet people all the time that got married on MySpace.
Yeah.
They were like, I met on MySpace, we got married, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe that was more socially acceptable because it was a social network site. But at the end of the day, I can't imagine single people at this point not being on a dating app. This concept that I brought up earlier does connect with me. So it's, for instance, I think one of the kind of toxic components of current social media is that when, you know, the story I often would tell kids in high school is I grew up in a really small town called Lake Oswego, and there was like a guy that owned a hamburger joint there called the Giant Burger where we'd hang out. And behind the Giant Burger, he had a DeLorean. And I was like, oh my God, like a DeLorean, like it was like the fanciest thing in the town. It was so exciting. We go get burgers. I would go around back and like admire this gentleman's DeLorean. And at that point in my life, I was like, this must be the pinnacle of success. Like owning a burger restaurant and driving a race, like a fancy, you know, DeLorean. This is incredible. And as I went through life, you know, obviously your universe expands. And I think now to the 14-year-old kid who's on Instagram, and when they look through the lens of that, they're seeing Kylie Jenner with all of her Ferraris and all the crazy stuff with the D'Amelios and all these influencers. And they're seeing this really big life, which is in many cases unachievable for them, whether it's from a wealth perspective, success perspective, body image, beauty, whatever. I think in a closed, small community, you compare yourself against that community and you find your path to whatever section you be in. But now our community is completely global, which means that on a dating app or on a social networking site, on Instagram or whatever, you might be looking into the lens of somebody who's a prince. You might be looking into the lens of some of the most wealthiest people. And part of that is why I think we saw this massive spike in depression that happened as the rise of Instagram really hit America, because people started comparing themselves against all these other people's lives. And I think it really made them feel, you know, less than, right? And I think that's what also happens in dating. It's because if you put people in a pool of, like I said, 100 people, you'll probably find somebody that maybe you could match with and you could actually build a relationship with. But if you put them in a pool of infinite people, with the most beautiful people, the most global people, then you're never satisfied, because you're always like, who's next? Who's next? Who's next? And I think people get on these treadmills and they can't really get off.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting for you. Like, as you step into that dating world again, you know, do you feel the constant need to kind of looking for the next best, next best, next best? And at what point are you like, I really want to spend time here?
That's such an interesting question too, because it goes back to what I said 10 minutes ago about not wanting to be in a exclusive relationship.
Right.
And do I not want to be in an exclusive relationship because I'm not ready?
Right.
Or is it because I am looking for the next best thing? Or is it because I just haven't found that person that makes me want to?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Give up that freedom and commit to that. That's a really big question.
Yeah.
But in a world where like you could be going on a different date every single night, the question is, are you not even allowing yourself either to meet that person or spend enough time with that person to get to that level of commitment? Because you're constantly being distracted by more opportunities and more other people.
That, or am I giving off this vibe
of unavailability?
Of unavailability.
You know, when we look through the lens of these dating apps, we definitely see a seriousness spectrum, right? Where you have people that are like, I'm absolutely here for fun and just playing around, to people that are like, I need to find the one.
Yeah.
And there's no really good way to broadcast it. I generally feel like, and looking at a lot of these companies, that if you're serious about finding the one, you probably aren't on dating apps. You probably should be with matchmakers.
Yeah.
I feel like the moment someone commits to go to a matchmaker and that matchmaker is selectively grabbing a small group of people to match you with, to put you on dates with, and hopefully you're not logging into a system where every day there's 50 or 100 new people to review. Yeah. I think when you step into a matchmaker, just the condensed kind of paradox of choice is going to be healthier. And I kind of feel like if you're really serious about matching, matchmakers are probably a better solution versus dating apps.
Yeah. I met this couple in February they were, introduced via a matchmaker, and they got engaged this August. They're so great together.
Yeah.
And it's interesting though, too, because it looks almost like one of those, like, she's a model. She's probably like after it or something. Yeah. They are so in love.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe if they had, maybe gone the dating app route, I mean, A, they probably wouldn't have found each other.
Right.
And B, it probably would have been some slightly less honest relationship.
Yeah. Maybe more superficial.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're looking through these gentlemen's profiles and you're looking through the questions they answer, so you're looking for a personality match, you're obviously looking at their images. Are you looking at where they work? Are you evaluating their kind of life?
So I don't know how it works on Hinge now or these other dating apps, if they're being super specific. Yeah. Sometimes, like, when I was on Hinge, it could literally be doctor.
Right.
Like actor.
Okay. So specific or broad, you're kind of saying? You're like categorical.
Or it could be very specific. It could be executive producer at
XYZ.
Yeah. Like, it could be specific. It could not be specific. But that also boils down to, like, having my friends take whatever information is there, gleaning some more information from the internet.
I think you're unique in that you're not doing that research, because I suspect what's happening is that most people are looking at images and then they're cross-referencing with web and their Instagram and, like, what is the life? And they're trying to create a more whole picture, which I think is in men probably more favorable and maybe in women questionably less favorable, potentially.
I think you're right.
Probably true. I generally don't think in today's world dating apps are fair between men and women.
No.
I think it's heavily favored towards men.
Yeah.
And I talk to a lot of people about the ratio of men and women that are single in different cities, because obviously we're exploring the space, and, like, there's definitely way more single women than men. Mm-hmm. And I find that, at the end of the day, the women that are competing on these dating apps for the attention of men, it's starting with, like, you've got to start with a perfect 10 body. You've got to be insanely good looking, like, just to get the swipe. And then you're kind of, like, filling in all the personality holes and stuff. But that initial bait is, like, high pressure. Yeah. And so I think it's hard. I think it's much harder for women than men.
I agree. I have a friend that she's gay and in Houston, and it didn't matter what dating app she was on. Houston, Texas, like millions of fucking people in population. It didn't matter what dating app she was on. The pool was so small. It was impossible to find anybody.
Because she was gay, you're saying?
Yes.
Because we assume there's not a lot of gay or large gay population in Houston?
But no, there must be. I mean, she was on all of the apps.
Yeah.
She was on every single app.
I just couldn't find them.
And it was almost like there weren't very many gay people who were on the apps in Houston.
Interesting.
But then and maybe that's because it was a Houston thing and not maybe she wasn't, because
maybe
she wasn't
LA,
in
San Francisco, New York, there would have been more Austin for sure.
It was interesting because she was really struggling when it came, like, on dating apps.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a grinder for lesbians, but there should be.
I'm sure there is.
But I found that to be interesting because she's really struggling with dating apps.
Yeah.
And she's also kind of more of an introvert.
Which is really hard.
Which made it really, really hard.
That's really hard. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because when you think about dating apps, at least from my perspective, you think about these perfect profiles with these like really robust, interesting lives.
Yeah.
And then there's like normal people that don't look perfect and they don't have they have just good lives and they have good jobs and maybe they're happy in their jobs or whatever.
Yeah.
And then representing them with some extra edge. Yeah. And it's funny because I have two kids and one's in college and one's like obviously prepping to apply. And it's kind of like, well, you've got to get the grades, but now you need to be interesting. Like, let's find your interesting components that basically make it so a college is going to accept you. Dating apps is somewhat similar, right? So it's like, oh, well, you look fine. You have, and you have a good life, but like, what's interesting? What's going to, jump out at you? Yeah. God forbid you're shy. God forbid you're an introvert. God forbid you're not like crazy Instagram-y beautiful. Like this is a much tougher situation for you, I think.
But also I think, I feel like dating apps are one of the best inventions that could have ever been invented for introverts. Because
that is true.
There are some people that are too shy. Let's say someone like to go sit at a bar alone.
Yeah.
Much less talk to someone whether they're alone or not at a bar.
Yeah, you're right. It's funny. I spent time with pretty much all the CEOs and founders of all the major social networks. And I'll tell you one common theme is like their statement broadly would be something to the tune of, I designed the system so I could get laid without leaving my house. Right? It's like early days Hot or Not, early days Face Smash, early days Facebook, obviously MySpace, definitely Snapchat. It was like, how do I meet girls without leaving my house? Oh, catalog everybody, rate everybody, images. And certainly, it's funny, I haven't looked at the history of whether Hot or Not, Match.com, or even like 6 Degrees, these early social network sites or dating sites happened at the same time. In a certain sense, they probably happened during the same kind of few year period. But they're kind of all the same, right? One is definitely about connecting with people you know. And one is definitely about connecting people you want to know or don't know, but it's all kind of the same.
Yeah.
Right. And for an introvert or for a highly, introverted extrovert that wants to sit at home and meet people, they're very efficient systems.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're not fair.
No,
they're definitely not fair. And I keep going back to this comparison, isn't this the statement is like comparison is the thief of joy, which I think is really, really true, because the moment you compare yourself against everyone in the world, you're going to maybe feel worse about yourself than if you didn't.
Yeah.
And I worry that, these social network broadly, these social network content and the dating sites compare you against everyone in the world.
Well, it's also like, let's say I'm swiping.
Sure.
I'm comparing the person I just swiped right or left to
the next one.
To the next one.
Right.
And what if one person looks better on paper, but what if the person who looks like horrible on paper, but who I did maybe swipe right on is my soulmate, but I'm never going to go on a date with that person because person B looks like the coolest person ever.
Well, it's also funny because if you hit no on somebody and then the next 10 people are way less interesting for you than the person you said no to, you might go back and say, actually, I want to say yes to the person 1 because persons 2 through 10 were actually not really what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely a flawed system.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have to circle back after you're on a bunch of these.
I know.
Apps.
I'm going to do it today.
Hear the stories.
I'm going to do it today.
Yeah. Let's do another episode and cover it. All right.
Well,
thanks for the time.
And thank you.
Amazing.
Cheers.
Cheers.